Oh, yeah. And Dengar's time is coming. Yeah, I hear Boba Fett's putting his gang together here, and everyone's coming out of the woodwork. He's going to be calling me up, and man, it's going to be Dengar's time again. I mean, they're calling Jedi. He's got some weird sheriff out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, Boba and I go back years, man. Running spice balls out there, Mos Eisley. Oh, the late nights, man. It was a good time. It was good times. Anytime now, man. It's that communique's gonna ring and Dengar's gonna be back, man. Dengar's time. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, if they had just put as much work into the first 4 episodes of this show as you did doing that took some planning, that took some real setup, that took some thought, that took some improvisation. That took just the meagerest amount of effort. But there was effort. You could see the effort in it.
I couldn't let down my people.
Crazy what you can do when you actually try.
Hey everyone, welcome to our fun little show tonight. We're trying to inject some humor and joy into all of the things we do, and so glad that you are joining us. Eric, I hope you enjoyed that one live, and everyone who's get to join us up in the chat. It's D's Reviews, Book of Fandalorians, coming to you for Book of Boba Fett, episodes or chapter 6, Cameo-rama, also known as Whose Show Is This Anyway? Joining me, as always, we got our fun Fandalorian pals on top here from Smirking Reviews. We, of course, have Rob Stone.
Me, yes. I am here ready to talk about somebody's show. And let's just jump right into it because there's another guy down here who's probably got 2 weeks, 3 weeks worth of stuff basically to say. So let's just get right over to Don Willie.
Who's muted? Muted. Technology.
Okay. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Yeah, glad to be back. Unfortunately, I was a little under the weather last week, but yeah, I'm back now and here to talk some Boba Cad something or other. Yeah. And a big black Wookiee. All right. So yeah, D, why don't you take it away, man?
Let's go. Yeah, we're going to try and run through stuff. Rob's got to take off in a little bit due to previous engagement, but I don't think there's necessarily a whole lot to really go into. We got a couple of big moments, cameos all over the place. But of course, we've got Rena Dietrich and Eric Scott here live in the chat. Glad you guys enjoyed our little opener there. And thanks, of course, to everyone joining us in the archives. Joining up later, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe. All those usual things all of us YouTube creators beg you to do every time you put on a video. Let's get to it. This week's episode, really more Mandalorian again than Boba Fett. We're not going to complain about it. We've had 2 weeks of doing that, of like, whose show is this anyway? So let's just kind of move on to this point. But in general, as a standing episode, what did you guys think? Don, let's kick things off with you since we missed you last week, stuck in your back to tank. Now that you're back with us, what did you think of our Mandalorian adventures this week?
Okay, so obviously picking up from last week when Mando went to Mos Pelgo and got his brand new racing ship. Still not as cool as the Razor Crest, but yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, he did give Grogu what we thought he was going to give him. That is a chainmail armored shirt, which interesting, very interesting to say the least. I mean, again, another good episode that did not have the title character really like I don't did Boba Fett even speak in this episode? I've only watched it once and I'm like, wait, I don't think he actually even said any words, which is kind of crazy for the show being named after him. Um Either way though, I thought this was another good episode. We got the live action debut of Cad Bane. We got the return of Cobb Vanth. So and we got to see what happened with the crate dragon after it was basically strip mined. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the hell the Jawas got that damn skull on top of the sandcrawler, but I mean, hey, it was a great hood ornament, I guess. Oh, and and Spice. Now we know what Spice looks like. It's literally looks like Spice. For real. Okay.
Kept in a convenient box.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
What about you, Rob? What did you think of this episode? Again, standalone, just as it presented itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's another sucky episode of Book of Boba Fett, but it's a freaking amazing episode of The Mandalorian. I loved it. I kept getting, my smile kept getting bigger and bigger. My heart, man, I was feeling so many things, many things, and including this thing that I've been saying for so many years that I think I know that I'm not alone in this. This can't be my thought alone, because I think a lot of us, we have these kind of thoughts and we just keep them to ourselves, and we hope someday we'll see them, but we just never know when. And also what we can accomplish in cinema is something that I've been waiting for my whole life. Because like the thought I'm saying that I think a lot of people have is, why wasn't Star Wars doing this a long time ago? Why weren't they getting this? And I guess we had to wait till the technology caught up to us, because now they can make the movies that people want to see and by that I mean they are able to recreate the characters of what they would look like after Jedi and make it a reality, and make it so that you don't notice, and if you do notice, you don't care, because you buy in. I'm watching this and I am all the way in. I was worried about what they would do if they ever did this again, and they did it, and I was floored at how they pulled off everything that they pulled off in this. It was cameos all over the place, but I mean, again, this is The Mandalorian, though. The Mandalorian episodes are known to be like, every time you think that, like, when we would have an episode we didn't think we'd have anything to talk about, we would be talking forever about that episode, because it would always bring something that you either didn't know you wanted or have been waiting your whole life for. And this episode ends up giving us both of those things. And and that's just another difference between this and that we're not talking about today.
Yeah.
That show gives us everything we could possibly want. And I almost, like, I know you guys there's been times where you guys talk about tearing up, and I'm like, nah, man, I don't do all that. But when I saw Luke sitting there just talking, and the expressions on his face, and the so realistic way that they did, I just really got emotional. I got really freaking emotional, because I was just like, this is what I've been waiting for. This is what we've all been waiting for since the credits rolled in 1983. And we got a taste of it last year, just a little taste. And we thought that if that's all we ever get, then that's all we ever get. And they gave us so much more. And I just feel so happy to be lucky to be alive to see this and hope that they take what they do here and can run with it.
I think that's really well put, because I got to say, I mean, obviously from our discussions last year, everyone knows my reaction to the CGI Luke, very different. To me, it stood out a lot. And I do say they have improved leaps and bounds. Just in the fact that they allowed him to move around and do things and react, as opposed to being very stationary, is hands up. And we mentioned this last week. Lucas has always wanted to push the technology. And I think you're right, Rob. We couldn't have seen this because you couldn't have had this look. I mean, just remember Tarkin in Rogue One, which was great, but almost too much. You had Flynn in Tron, when we had here as Clue in Tron Legacy. That was some of the early tech, and for a lot of people that kind of stood out. So the fact that they can make this a lot more streamlined, I think is a tenement to what Star Wars also is, not just story wise, but technology wise as well, which is cool. It was one of those where, to me, it was a half Luke, half not Luke thing. I think you're right. Once you submit and go, I'm committed, you have to kind of go with it. I am looking forward to seeing where the tech goes. Indeed. But yeah, let's get into the episode itself. And like I said, we're going to kind of split this up into Tatooine and the Jedi School to be. So let's start things off here on Tatooine with Cobb Vanth and Freetown, which was a good chunk of the episode. Very exciting to have Cobb Vanth back. Timothy Olyphant can strut it. He looks great. His reactions are fun. We get to meet a new deputy. But our opening bit, I did have a question of, and in the chat, I'm going to call you in on this one to answer some questions for me right here. We have a spice meeting. I believe we're trading off spice for cash. We're doing a delivery. Why is there only one speeder? Where did the other ones come from? Are they picking this up from the ground? Did the other guys walk? Did they park in the flats where the deputy told, is telling? That was my one curious. I'm like, this is a cool opening scene and I love the setup. But why is there only one speeder? Did they both drive here, do the exchange, and then we're going to jump back? I don't know. Chat, if you could throw something, guys, if you have anything. But yeah, let's jump in. What did you guys think about Cobb Vanth reappearing here? Well, again, in Mandalorian season 2.5.
Me personally loved it, but honestly speaking, like, I think that him losing the Fett armor, he should have gotten something to replace it from the Jawas. Because he looked kind of bare with just a gun. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, we already know that he's a badass gunfighter, but still, 1-on-4. You're not really too sure about those odds, especially when he's only wearing like some kind of cloth shirt. Looked like he had on a little linen shirt with a linen scarf. I'm like, okay,
it's a powerful neckerchief.
Apparently, I guess. And his sidekick, Mr. Redshirt, later on. I don't even remember if the guy had a name. But
he's new.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting opening there, because based on like when they showed the recap, you think that they were going to start off with Mando again. Right. And like, nope, we're going to Mos Pelga. Oh, no, sorry, Freetown now. So it's like, all right, we got to see the spice. Yeah, make sure to leave that spice here. Not going to do anything with it, but can't have you running around with spice. You know, we like our food kind of plain around here. You need all that spice on it. Not a fan of your seasonings. you know, yeah, that was the only thing that kind of got me. It was like, really? So this little chest here with some paprika is worth more than the whole Freetown. Interesting.
It's crushed cardamom. It's the queen of spices.
Okay.
I don't know.
mean, it looked like some smoked paprika to me, or maybe like some paprika mixed with like some curry or something like that, give it a little more brown than red. But I mean, all right. I mean, it definitely wasn't saffron, right?
No, it's definitely not saffron.
Because then it would have been bright red. But yeah, I mean, the opening was interesting, and there was really no kind of foreshadowing though with that one. It was just kind of like, hey, Cobb Vanth is back. We know you're happy. Come on, yeah, you're like American Pierce Brosnan. Come on, stop it. Rob.
I really liked how they structured this story of beginning with Cobb and ending with Cobb. Really having, and then you have the bit in the middle, and I just thought it was again, when we're talking about this, the way that this show works, because you can see the structure. It's obviously there. You're not looking for it. So I loved it. And again, like Timothy Oliphant, like he's that kind of guy that you just, I have a feeling that he probably has a hard time keeping just regular straight guys from just wanting to be like his buddy.
Sure.
Like he's like everywhere it is like there's Timothy Oliphant. If I saw Timothy Oliphant, I would just be like, I would have a restraining order on myself within a day, because I just want to be around that guy. He just oozes cool, and I just thought that I didn't see the whole thing with the car, but I did think that it was weird that he can just appear out of nowhere, because that street was deserted. It was just his deputy. It was just deputy douchebag standing there, and then Cobb's just like, poof. How you doing? Like right there behind him, like where the hell did you come from? So I guess I saw that part. You saw the other part. If we're only talking, are we talking about all of Cobb's stuff or just the beginning?
Oh no, go on in. We started there. We could definitely move on stuff. I think you guys hit it all.
Yeah. Well, other than to remind everybody that W. Earl Brown is the bartender. Both Oliphant and Brown were on Deadwood together. And I still love that connection. I do love the bones inside the bar. Yes, the Jawas having the skull was cool, even though would they recognize Mando in a different I don't know. But also, I don't care how practical that ship is. It looks cool.
It is cool.
10-year-old me is like, I want that ship more than the Volkswagen Razor Crest, okay? So there's that. But then we get to Cad Bane, right? Holy freaking balls. Was that just the best way to introduce this character? And how great were the effects of those facial expressions? His mouth was more interesting to watch than anything. Like it was one of the top things of the episode was watching the anime, like the way they did his mouth. When where they even would leave just a couple of teeth, where it's like he's biting just the inside of his lip. That's the detail they put in. The right voice, the right menace.
Yes.
There's a threat, a real threat that comes out of nowhere. And I did mention that I said I saw Cad Bane on a poster a few weeks back. And I was like, I don't know if this is where it's going to happen. Maybe it was a rumor or whatever. but bringing another a character introduced in the cartoons to life perfectly. I mean, maybe he's not 100% what you see in your head. He could have. I kind of see him as a little lankier, but I don't care. Little details, whatever. The guy is more of a badass than our title character, of which this show is now no longer about.
True. Yes, I do love that they did use, was it Corey Burton is still doing the voice for Cad, who did it in the series, both the Clone Wars, and I think he pops up in Bad Batch an episode as well. So that was, I mean, I think that was a good choice. I don't know. I think they leaned a little more on his voice in the cartoons. In this, they're leaning more on the facial expressions, and I think you should let him chew up the scenery and just have him. It's little half growls of his all the time. I think always eat it up. But you're right. It's minor minutious points. Some people have been like, "Oh, his skin's not blue enough," and other people are like, "Yes, this is 20 years later. Maybe he's a little older, a little paler." Whatever. I think it was good to see this. Again, this episode also directed by Dave Filoni. So bringing more of his characters to life is something he really seems to enjoy doing. I do have the same parking question, though, with him. Where did he park? Did he park in the flats? Is that why he's so upset when he shows up about how far to walk and how uncomfortable to shoot them and then turn around and have to walk all that way back? I know it's cool, but I'm a dick, okay?
Can you imagine that off of somebody's question like that, they would suddenly create a way on the Blu-ray or something where you could navigate the scene so that you could like go into the shot and go outside of the town so that Darren Jakes could find out where he parked? Like this, they'll call it like Star Wars, satellite, where you could go into anywhere and
the
like
troll version. Is that the?
And you could just laser around like the way that they film it, like the way we film it. We have all this stuff that you don't even see. So and just for you. And then they just like this is for this guy out in California.
Look, the Western walk up out of the desert. I mean, the technical title of the episode, from the desert comes a stranger, obviously dealing with Cad Bane. And it is a total look. I'm being a dick here, and I say that, but it is just one of those things where I'm like, where'd you come from? Does he have to go all the way back there now? But Dawn, what did you think about Cad Bane showing up?
So, Cad Bane, wow. So it was a little. I was a little taken aback. I mean, because I figured sooner or later they were going to have to introduce Cad Bane because he's got to have his final showdown with Boba Fett, right? The face, I think they did a great job on the facial expressions. But I guess, live action versions of the characters always look slightly different than their animated counterparts. So it took me a minute to get on board with it because, I mean, I've been spending years watching Clone Wars and Bad Batch and all that and seeing him look a certain way. So for him to be translated to live action and him to look, it wasn't drastically different, but it was a little bit, it was like, okay, it's going to take me a second for my eyes to adjust, but once I was in there, I was on board. His voice sounded a little different though too, but I mean, again, like you said, it's like 20 something years later. He's been through some things, so it's understandable. I'm wondering whether or not they're going to keep with the story that they were supposed to do in the Clone Wars about how Boba Fett got the dent in the helmet, because apparently Cad Bane, like he had a showdown with Cad Bane. Cad Bane shot him in the head, and that's how he got the dent in the helmet.
That would be a great story to tell. Do you think they'll actually tell it?
If they do, I mean, well, what I'm wondering is, Are they going to do a back to flashback?
Oh no, God, no, please.
You know, because we still gotta show young Boba Fett again. You can't just show him in the mirror doing like this as his father goes to try and kill Senator Amidala. So yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I think they did a great job with introducing this character to the live audience who may have never seen Clone Wars, because I know people who was like, oh yeah, I don't do cartoons at all, and I'm just like, you have absolutely no idea what you've been missing with the Clone Wars, none.
Yeah.
So yeah, I that was interesting. I mean, especially also too because he works for the Syndicate, so it's like, okay. Syndicate has their own muscle anyway. They're getting soldiers up, but now they've got one of the most feared bounty hunters in the galaxy, at least as far as last time that I remember. And I'm just like, okay, next episode is going to be very, very interesting indeed.
Yeah. And Rob, I think you hit a good point too on the structure wise, because I think this was a great setup. It starts off with Syndicate invading Mos Pelgo. Mandalorian shows up asking for help from them, leaves. Syndicate comes for revenge on Cobb Vanth's attack on the Syndicate in the beginning, which sucks the town in, brings them in. It's a great motivator. We see it. It plays out really nicely, and I think it's a great way to sort of structure the episode in that sense. The one other thing I do want to hit on before we jump to the Jedi Academy, just real quick, is one, we're all pretty sure Cobb Vanth lived, and of course, Deputy dead. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
But we also had a little bomb delivery for Miss Jennifer Beals, who I don't believe we will be seeing again. And if we do, honestly, that will upset me. If she comes out with a little spurned skid mark of like, oh, somebody covered me. Oh, I dove behind a thing. I will be really upset. I hate those little bait and switches.
No, she's going to have Cass on her.
Oh, God. Can she use the back to tank?
She'll have a neck brace, like a whiplash neck brace.
Please don't.
I mean, she can use the back to tank. Should she
Sure.
use the back to tank is the question.
Yeah.
You just show like a leg in there.
They're gonna grow her back from the leg.
One comment here. Eric Scott mentioning he was one who wasn't sure if you should watch Clone Wars because it was animated. Finally checked it out in 2019 on Disney Plus and loved it. All Star Wars fans should check it out. Yeah, I will admit some of the early first, second season of Clone Wars is a little rough, but that happens with most seasons. I think the first episode is literally like Yoda taking some clones across a planet to get there before, the Empire does or the Separatists. So
yeah,
it can be a little silly, but there's also some amazing in-depth storytelling. And if you're a fan and you've got Disney Plus already, you're watching this show, you should check it out. All right. So our Jedi school, our other half of story, Luke Skywalker teaching Grogu. We've got Ahsoka stopping by, hanging out. We have the building of the Jedi School, which we do see burned down in the sequels trilogy. Actually, love to all of the trilogies between the Naboo Starfighter and the Yoda saber for the first one, first trilogy, Luke Skywalker, and seeing Boba Fett for just a moment, akin to the middle trilogy. And then, of course, our little shot of what happens with the school for the sequel trilogy. So a lot of not only cameos, but references. And I don't know, what did you guys think of the school? Yes, Luke was awesome. seeing Ahsoka was fun. If you guys want to dive into that, I'm actually curious what you guys thought about the actual school and training of Grogu. Was this what you wanted to see? Was it in depth? Was it just fan service? Was it filler? What did you guys think of this? Don, why don't you kick this one off?
All right, so this was interesting because I'm sitting there trying to figure out where the hell, like, because they didn't show what planet it was, right? So I'm guessing this was whatever planet Luke had built the new Jedi Academy on, the one that got burned down by his nephew, and then the whole thing with obviously him saying, "Hey, you're going to be my first student," but gave him the choice: either you put on the armored shirt and go back to Mando, or you stay here with Yoda's lightsaber. Which, I'm sorry, how did he get the lightsaber?
Don't ask these questions.
Because I could have sworn he lost that in Revenge of the Sith. But all right, whatever. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie. It's sometimes known as Lone Wolf and Cub, and sometimes called an Assassin.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
classic Japanese series and manga. Yeah.
So one of the things of you make your choice as to what it is you want, and he saw Mando fly off. I don't know if Luke actually saw, but Luke, I'm pretty sure, could sense it. And Ahsoka, it was like, yeah. Wait, first off, hold on. How did Mando get the coordinates to the planets? Because it's not like Luke said at the end of Mandalorian, "Hey, here's where you can find me." And Ahsoka says, "Yeah, this is the safest place in the galaxy for Grogu. So if anyone's trying to hunt him, like nothing's, he's good." And I'm just kind of like, but Mando got here. If Mando got here, no one else can get here. Okay, whatever.
He filed a forwarding address with the post office, and that let him know. Sorry, I'm going to jump in here real quick, Don. I'm just looking at the clock. I know, Rob, you've got to take off shortly, so I want to hear your thoughts on this before you've got to go.
As far as the school and everything goes, I mean, I'm choosing to look at this like this. The sequel trilogy hasn't happened yet. So I'm going timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ignoring everything post this.
Okay.
So for as far as I'm concerned, that school never gets burned down. Right? We can worry about that later.
Sure.
I'm not sitting, you know what I mean? So like I see this is again where I've always wanted to see this. There's many different there's a couple of different versions of Luke after Jedi. And this is just what I would expect it to look like. And it's just nice that the roles are reversed here with him having to teach the Yoda type character, the one that looks like his master.
Yeah.
And I just was so caught up in it. And I know that there are things that we could go, how's this? Luke probably could have gone to Coruscant and found it with the Force. I don't fucking know.
Sure.
But it just, I got so wrapped up into just, this is what I've always wanted. And this was what we wanted for the Mandalorian. Like, this is what we were dreaming would possibly happen down the road on the Mandalorian. They gave it to us before the season starts. They jumped it's like they listened and said, people want to know this. People want to, and we can make them wait another 9 months or whatever. We give them this, that will satiate a lot of people. And it just was just so sweet, damn it. It was just, like just the reverse of Empire. The bright, and it's not the jungle of Dagobah. It's the bright forest, and didn't feel like, the fear that Luke had, and the energy was different. Everybody, like, it was more encouraging. And just the thing with, like, how he was with Grogu, how they, with the frogs and all of it. And it's his tone with Grogu, the way he talks, and just gentle storytelling and being gentle with him, and knowing, like, this is, when he gives the speech about, a small amount of time for you is a lifetime for someone else. Like, God, it's just so good. And it's just like, again, if this was all we ever got, like, I drop dead tomorrow, I got to see something that just, in the moment, I was having such a hard time realizing that this is happening. Like, you know what I mean? It's like stuff that you see in your dreams, where you go, yeah, man. And one time in my dream, it was like Yoda and a not Yoda, and Luke Skywalker training him, and I was there. That's what it feels like when I'm looking at this. Is just this thing that I've lived long enough to see, and that's just fantastic. And I got to leave in a couple of minutes, so I'm just gonna tell everybody bye now. And this was great. And I usually take good notes. I have my notebook, but since they don't try on the book of Boba Fett, this is how I took my notes on a paper plate that I ate pizza on last night. And these notes are actually really important, and we'll talk more about them next week, because it has to do with a comment that Eric Scott made a while back about how this should have been called whatever, a Star Wars story. I have some stuff to say about that next week, but this was just aces all around. Great episode. The armor, the choice at the end, like all of it. I wish I could stay and talk more, and I will next week when we talk, when we are in our finale chat. So I want to thank everybody, and thank you guys for carrying on and going on doing this. Don, hopefully I'll see you next week. Darren, you too. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, and I'll see you later.
All right, take it easy, Rob. Yeah, and I think Rob here hits an excellent point also, and that was the first thing that I felt when Din landed, was that this felt like a light side Dagobah. He lands by the instead of the swamp, it's a little pond lake, and R2 is there, and he jumps out and he takes him through the forest. It's like going through, and he's seeing the building of the hut, which is sort of akin to Yoda's bit. It did feel very much like the light side of what Dagobah would be. So I thought that was really cool. Don, thank you so much for your patience on that. I knew Rob was going to get on out of here. So yeah, keep on with your thoughts here on the Academy, and how even just the feeling of seeing this.
So, obviously this was a dream come true, because this is stuff that we have read about for years. It's been visualized in comic books and graphic novels, posters, video games, but never have we actually seen it in live action, right? They did do a much better job on Luke Skywalker as far as the animation, especially with the lip sync. So apparently, and I'm not sure if anyone in the chat knew this, in the season finale of Mando season 2, Mark Hamill actually didn't even voice any of those lines. It was a computer that did all of that, which was interesting. Now, another thing that I kind of noticed, even though this definitely looked more like Mark Hamill, the thing that I kind of realized, if you know the actor that does like the double for him, it looks more like, instead of them just deep faking Mark Hamill's face from that time, they kind of combined Mark Hamill with this actor, and that's why it looks just a tad off because it's like, okay, I get it. Look, the man is doing the actual work. You want to give him some sort of just due. So you morph him in with Mark Hamill from that era, just a tad bit. But the thing about it is, now it kind of throws us off because you know what Mark Hamill looks like, or at least what he's supposed to look like. And so there is that kind of uncanny valley feeling to it just a tad bit because it's like it is Mark Hamill, but something is off about it. But maybe this is kind of their proof of concept that an Adventures of Luke Skywalker show can be done. There have been rumors about them doing a Luke Skywalker show, pre 7, 8, and 9. So I mean that would be kind of cool if we get to see Luke in all his glory. But if anyone from Lucasfilm actually happens to see this and sit through, listen, whoever is doing the facial rendering there, great job. But you can't mix in the other actor's face with Mark Hamill. It's got to be all Mark Hamill from here on out if this is what you're planning on doing. Because people who grew up seeing Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker and knowing what Luke Skywalker and Mark Hamill look like, there's always going to be the that small thing of what's wrong with his face.
Yeah.
Not, and it has nothing to do with him getting into a car accident. Something's wrong with CGI Mark Hamill, and we're not exactly sure what it is until they see the actor who's doing the doubling for it, and they're like, oh, I get it. Oh yeah, they morph the faces together.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to see him, the actor who plays Mark Hamill, who plays or is doing the body stuff for Luke, was the other X-Wing pilot last week. He was all, I think, bearded and stuff up there, but that's the guy who did it last for the season finale last year, and I think for the guy who's doing it on this one. So, yeah, there's also been a lot of discussion by Sebastian Stan, who very much has been wanting to play Luke Skywalker, and I've got to say, yeah, because of that uncanny valley, and I love seeing Luke, I do, and like I said, like half the times it is Luke. But if you're going to do anything more extensive, I'm almost like, just cast Sebastian Stan. Just cast him, have him do it, because then you can get the small little body languages, the quirks, the sounds, the small things that this doesn't totally have yet. And again, I love the technology. I'm not harping on that. All I'm saying is that from an immersion standpoint, just go all the way and give somebody else that, or like you said, do it 100% deep fake and at least put the real money and stuff behind it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, they did a fantastic job, because think about it, like when we saw Luke at the end of Mando season 1. It was like, oh, okay, cool, it's Luke. And then he started talking, and it was like, something is wrong here. So they did a much better job with the voicing. I don't know if they did the whole computer thing this time around, because last time it definitely sounded partially robotic in terms of the manner in which he was speaking. It sounded hobbled together. As someone who has spent a lot of time doing editing for voiceovers and songs and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something that like I hear the edits like like that stands out to me. So this time around, I was listening for it, and there were a couple here and there, but it was very, very light. They did a much better job this time on the lip sync, like I said. But again, the only thing that kind of took away from it was the fact that it's like, okay, well, you've mixed in the other actor with Mark Hamill, and so now it doesn't 100% look like Luke Skywalker talking.
Sure.
But I can live with it though. I can live with it. It's not, it's not an end all be all thing of, oh my god, yeah,
It's a progressing technology, indeed. Sorry, Eric in the chat mentions that there's a different guy who played the stand-in Luke for this week than the guy who did last time. I will go with that. I honestly, I'm bad. I did double check. I just assumed it was the same guy since we saw him as an X-Wing pilot last week. That's how they're giving him work. Man, we'll have you play Luke half the time, and then you can play somebody else that's actually your face the other half. It seems like a fair deal. I do have one question about the big choice at the end, because of course what this comes down is Mando showing up, wanting to connect with Grogu, give him the chainmail. Ahsoka, I think in a smart sense, yeah, holding him back. That's too much. Is it going to be hard to say goodbye on both of their ends? I kind of get with that. And I liked Ahsoka a lot in this episode. I thought she looked great. I thought she sounded great. I'm all pure Ahsoka now. But the bit at the end, like you mentioned, very much lone wolf and cub choice. I think that was a ball and a sword. You can play or you can fight. That was the big thing with them. Here, of course, you can go with the Mandalorian, take this, go with the Mandalorian, or become a Jedi. And to me, I think this was a real drop for the show of an opportunity story-wise, because last week we talked about the way. The way is loyalty and solidarity, the opposite of the Jedi, which is detachment. So it sets up an interesting philosophical bit. And while we had demonstrations of the Force for training, there wasn't really any discussion of what the Force was. I mean, I think you mentioned something. There's balance in the in nature, and the Force will teach you balance and stuff like that. But I thought this was a real interesting opportunity to go, why is detachment important for a Jedi? In a lot of ways, we can go into things that detachment allows a clearer vision in connection with the Force. Emotion does cloud your vision. It gives you a personal stake in things. And to be objective and connected with things, often you need that objectivity. Detachment helps with that. You could go into a full philosophical voice. Also, the dangers of his own father. He couldn't let go of this thing, and that drove him. There was a real interesting point to discuss of why you have this. Instead, we have a flashback scene of Jedi who all died trying to protect him, and he's given the choice of, you could be that, or you go back to the Mandalorian who's given you armor to protect you and has spent his entire existence protecting you for the past 2 years. Is that a fair choice to give him? And I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I think they had a real loss. It's not kind of diving into the philosophical differences here.
I mean, listen, it's definitely one of those things where, do you go with attachment or detachment? What do you gain? What do you lose? I think it's gonna be obvious that he doesn't go and stay with Luke.
Yeah. This is their out.
And then the other thing too, excuse me, the other thing as well, the flashback to the Clone Wars. I thought they were going to finally show who rescued him. And we got cut off right before. I'm like, yo, come on, man. Seriously, he was the only, seems like he was the only youngling to survive, right? And I'm guessing that this must have been pretty early on because, for one, it was dark outside.
Sure.
And then two, when Obi-Wan and Yoda actually got to the temple, The temple was basically done for. They just mopped up the last few clones that were still there, but no one inside. And obviously, back when George Lucas made Revenge of the Sith, you know, there was no Grogu on his radar, so there couldn't have been a setup for this in the movies. Um, but I mean, the thing that just kind of has me wondering is like, all right, well, who saved him, and what happened to whoever it was that saved him? Because he he has been a child for the better part of 50 years. Uh, he's going to need a caretaker.
Sure.
And they didn't. Yeah, we just don't know what happened as far as.
And that could be something they expand into in the actual season 3 of Mandalorian. If they do go back, because I think you're right. I think that this is kind of the way to steer him back into being with Mando, because we love Mando, but we need Grogu.
I mean, it's funny because he seems to have not forgotten everything, but it definitely was one of those things where, when Luke picked up like a whole bunch of frogs and he looks at his hand like, dude, like seriously, how were you able to do that, Mr. Robot? I'm sitting here with only 3 fingers on my hand and figure it should be even easier for me to concentrate the force through less fingers, but apparently you can go and uplift like 5 or 6 frogs at the same time. Stop me from eating my snack. Bad, Master Luke, bad.
That's the wrong way to use the Force.
Yeah.
Wes, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the entire training everything with Grogu and Luke was pretty interesting to say the least. Because we finally see Luke be the master or the teacher instead of the student.
Sure.
And, he's obviously got some knowledge of the ways of the Jedi, because he definitely goes back and kind of relates a couple of things to Grogu.
Mm-hmm.
And, when he gives him the final choice, I mean, again, for one, I'd be asking the question, all right, well, where the hell did you get the lightsaber from? And I asked that not just as an outside observer, but if I was a kid, someone hands me one of the most dangerous weapons there is known to man, my first reaction is going to be like, okay, you got me a lightsaber here. You got me a lightsaber. Cool. I think I'm a little young for it.
Parental warning. Yeah, he could barely walk. He's just learning to hop now.
Right.
And I love Luke's impatience. You're not walking fast enough. I'm just gonna bring you forward. Sorry.
I mean, that was a cool shot because I don't think we've seen anything like that before.
No, that was cool.
And it kind of gives you the scope of how powerful, or not powerful, but how much more in tune with the Force he's gotten in the past 5 years, to where he's like, okay, cool, go put on your clothes and let's go take a walk. And he's, walking beside him. He's like, all right, well, you're not walking fast enough. Here you go. Push you forward in front of me, so this way I have time to catch up to you instead. So that was an interesting creative choice, but I'm glad that we got to see it because, honestly speaking, I think that as far as Force users are concerned, they've never really unleashed the Force in the show. I mean, not in the show, but
outside of a video game or sequel, yes.
Yeah, and well, I guess you could say Kylo Ren with the whole holding the blaster bolt there.
Sure, very true. That was a
walking
cool
around
shot.
doing whatever, and then when he's ready to leave, he lets it go to the target that's in front of him. It's. I loved the fact that we actually get to see Master Luke, and not just pupil, apprentice, Padawan Luke. But he was like, hey, if you pick the lightsaber, you're gonna be our first student. I found when it comes to like martial arts, the gym, all that kind of stuff, no one wants to be like the first and only person to get trained on this stuff, especially if they know that you're new at it. You're like, look, let somebody with experience come by, do a little something with you first, and then after I see that they're able to maintain on this thing, then maybe I'll jump on.
Grogu's checking the Yelp reviews first on this. Okay,
I mean,
I see.
You got to, listen, it's a big galaxy. You don't know who's scam Jedi. He's been waiting for the Empire to fall so they can just be like, hey, yeah, found this lightsaber years ago, off of like a dead Jedi or something like that, and now I'm running around. I get to claim to be a Jedi because who's gonna mess with me and my laser sword? So,
I do have to say that I would think actually that they might have found Yoda's lightsaber in the Emperor's like personal collection. I would imagine he would have taken that and kept that as a nice little trophy, knowing Sidious. So Wes had mentioned in the chat, imagine if Grogu could have both. That would be awesome. The armor and the sword. Yes, of course. That's exactly what should be. And it is an interesting choice because in the conversation between Luke and Ahsoka, which I think there was some nice little bits, you remind me of your father. I hope that wasn't like a dark thing to say. You're going to kill a bunch of people, I can tell. No, it was a very sweet, and it was kind of nice little moments. And I loved Ahsoka even talking with R2 and stuff. I mean, again, we get some cool imagery in this. But he does mention that he's not training Grogu at the moment so much as Grogu is remembering what he's already knows. Obviously implying that there was training at the Jedi Academy when he was younger, before the whole fall of the Academy and stuff. And of course, we don't know what's happened in the past 20 years. Was he with the Jedi and then he blocked it out? Who knows? What are the specifics on that? But I think that does add sort of an interesting element, as you can have like little Grogu Mandalorian Jedi action happening. Who knows what he can start to bring? And I think him set up in the armor is perfect. And there's already the little circle, the little pod set up on the Naboo. So I mean, it's like it's just waiting for him.
Yeah, I mean, it was it was obviously foreshadowed with with the little Naboo hot rod there, and them them saying that they took off the droid cockpit and put on a extra one or whatever. I mean, that was obvious,
yeah.
So,
and you can even say that Peli Motto did that intentionally, because she was like, "You should get your guy back and use him as a petting zoo guy."
Yeah. I mean, and let's be honest here. As much as we all love the Book of Boba Fett, there's a chance that they purposely did not, and forget about chance. I'm going to say that they purposely did not have their reunion be in this episode because they want to save it for the Mandalorian itself.
Yeah. Oh, and they should. Indeed. Okay, actually, speaking of next season and continuances, next week is the last episode. They're supposed to wrap this series up next week with one episode. Now, we do have with Cad Bane a nice danger with the Pikes coming after Boba Fett. We obviously have a town that's going to get together to help defend because they'll be upset their sheriff has been damaged. And they're trying to move in on Mos Pelgus on Freetown's territories. Oh, we'll fight back. Which, again, makes me think that Boba Fett wants to be a cop and not so much of a crime lord. But do you think they'll actually wrap this up? Do you think they're implying they're going to push for a Boba Fett season 2? And do we want a Book of Boba Fett season 2 with the way season 1 has been?
I think you might want to give them the chance to redeem themselves.
For sure.
We're talking about Disney, Lucasfilm, and then whatever directors they hire on for it. Obviously the director is going to have his own vision, and the other people are going to have theirs. So, it's all about who has the power when it comes to that whole thing. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, all right, well, where do they take this? Because I think the fans are hoping and expecting for certain things and certain iconic scenes from the expanded universe, the novels, the graphic novels, one-shot comic books, whatever may have you. So it's just going to be interesting to see, like, as far as trying to wrap up this season, and then also, can they redeem themselves if they decided to do another season?
Sure.
Because Robert Rodriguez is executive producer, one of the writers, and I think he filmed the pilot for this.
He did directed episode 1, I think 3 as well. And I heard that he was going to do 3, so he might be directing the finale, which would at least round out the tone. Because I think there's definitely been tone shifts throughout this season, inconsistencies and stuff.
Yeah. Especially the damn speeder bike gang. I don't. Yeah, I'm sorry. I do not understand their purpose.
This we might even continue this next week because I'm curious how this is going to go out. But I was curious who was actually in charge of this. Who was the showrunner for Book of Boba Fett? And all my initial is Robert Rodriguez. Yes, except that later discussions I see that he is the co-showrunner. And part of me wonders if he started off the series and at a point it was like, why did Mando and all this come in? Is they had to rescue the series. This is a dark thought, folks. I'm off the top of my head here. But again, because we have such inconsistent tones, the first 3 episodes had a very kind of weird, goofy tone. Then suddenly in episode 4, you have Kevin Trankarian from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., one of the directors from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., also did like Mortal Kombat series and stuff. He comes in, much tighter story, gives us our background, gives us our action. Then all of a sudden, next thing you know, we've got Dallas Bryce Howard in doing a Mandalorian episode. And here we have Dave Filoni jumping in, doing the Cameo-rama, introducing every character under the Star Wars universe and giving us, the dreams of what we wanted to see, years ago and what happened with post Luke. So again, I don't know if something fell out. I don't know if all this was intentional, but part of this starts to feel like, were they going one way and then they had to do a quick reversal? So I'm really curious how next week episode is going to feel. Is it going to balance it? Is it going to tie it up? And like you say, give us our redemption of like, oh my God, this was totally worth it. Or, yeah, is it going to be like, please don't have a season 2. We're good. We got it. Boba's on Tatooine. He's the king. Can we move on? Just bring back Fennec.
Yeah. This was, like I said, very, very good episode. Why couldn't the first 4 be somewhere on this level? You know, yeah. It's one of those things where it's kind of mind-boggling to a certain extent because of the fact that not only the shift in tone but the shift in quality.
Yes.
That was the thing that really kind of got me.
Yes.
So your original question is, are they going to do a season 2? Honestly speaking, I do not know. If let's put it like this, I think if the next episode gets crazy numbers, then they could consider it. Yeah, I think they would wind up considering it if the book, Boba Fett season finale, did crazy numbers.
Right.
I don't think Luke is going to show up with Grogu and fight against Cad Bane and finally say, hey, look, Boba, I'm sorry about what the Jedi Order did to your family by cutting off your father's head. But hopefully we can put the misunderstanding of everything that happened behind us. But who knows? Listen, as long as they don't have Alden Ehrenreich show up playing Han Solo, all right? Because once they do that, I'm just gonna check out.
That's fair. Sorry, all I'm seeing is one of those little shots of like in the desert, and then you have Boba Fett come up and Luke next to him, and they don't even look at each other, and Boba just goes, "Bygones, man." And Luke's like, "Bygones," and then they move off.
I want to rule with respect. Yeah, he walks up, says, "I want to rule with respect," and then walks off.
Yeah. By the way, the quote there is actually from season 2 of Black Summer on Netflix. I would totally check that out if you guys like zombies, especially since they do some great camera work, long single camera shots, out of phase interconnected storylines and stuff. Very cool, very dark. But yeah, they've got a hilarious little scene about that just sort of reminds me of. Wes Sager, Grogu rides the Rancor into battle to save the day, calling it. That might rescue the show. That might just be so over the top that might do it. Silva mentioning, I think they actually fused Mando season 3 and Boba series due to COVID and Cara Dune being fired and RL and scrapping that footage. Yes, except these were all planned out a while ago. I think even in the midst of COVID is when they started doing Book of Boba Fett filming and stuff. That's one of the things I think why Mandalorian got pushed. So yeah, I mean, if they were doing it at the same time and then came in because there were issues, that might be. I would be actually, Silva, really curious how what the backstory on this. Knowing the mouse, we probably would never know. Well, I think we pretty much covered everything I said. Next week we got our big season series. We'll just say finale episode. Hopefully a lot of action. I'm really hoping that they do a good wrap up of this, and make this more than just Mandalorian filler until season 3 comes in. I think honestly they should surprise us, and season 3 for Mandalorian should kick off immediately, right before between and filling in the space between Book of Boba Fett and Moon Knight. I think we should just go straight through.
Yeah,
I'm dreaming, but it'd be nice. Any final thoughts, Don? And then why don't you let people know where they can find you?
So let's see. Final thoughts. Obviously, keeping the trend of making great episodes of the Book of Boba Fett without Boba Fett in it. We got some more hype for Mandalorian season 3. Great cameos, and just a nice little prelude to war. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that, because now the thing that we also are going to be wondering is the war going to be over with the next episode, or is this just the beginning of the war?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's all I got for that. But as far as where people can find me, you can find me on Twitter at iDonWillie. That is IDonWilli. You can find me here on YouTube at Adon of Ice and Fire. And if I'm not there, you can find me with this guy right here and the other guy who was here earlier, Mr. Rob Stone, providing some commentary on Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and all things Star Wars.
Excellent. Well, and I want to be sure to thank everybody who joined us in the chat. Silver Surfer, Eric Scott, Wes Sager, Arena Dietrich was in here earlier as well. The Rich Room popping through. Winnie Mosley. I think they're selling something I don't understand. Some people pop in the chat and they just say weird stuff. I don't know if it's a language shift or not, but if it's a confusion, thank you for joining us. Everybody joining us live, everyone joining us in the archives, really appreciate you checking out the show. If you liked our little animated beginning bit, maybe I'll see if I can do a few more of this. I've got a giant collection, so I should use it for something. And yeah, I'm really hoping that this season wraps up very well. I'm looking forward to it. The only thing that I'm hoping is that this story stays contained here. I don't want it leaking back into Mandalorian. I think there's enough fun stuff to tell on that end, and going back to Mandalore and his redemption and Grogu and what's going on with all of that. I'd like to separate these series personally. But of course, we'll be here talking about that next week. And then, of course, end of March, I believe, we'll have Moon Knight coming up as well. So lots of fun things. Thank you guys, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, like I said, in the archives. And we will catch you all next time. Bye-bye.